The new bar in the Frasier reboot explains why Frasier Crane should hang out there rather than going back to Cheers. 30 years after leaving for his hometown of Seattle, Kelsey Grammer's elitist therapist has returned to Boston. After spending 15 years in Beantown, Frasier had many wonderful memories of the area, including the beginning of his private practice, which helped him amass fortune, and the birth of his son, Freddie. But a lot of his evenings were spent at Sam's Tavern sipping beer. Since Frasier hasn't visited the watering hole since the Frasier reboot, it is expected that he will do so in the future. Rather, a brand new bar that has emerged as Frasier and Freddie's new hangout was added during the Frasier reboot. The place is allegedly close to Harvard and has an interior that is reminiscent of both Seattle's Cafe Nervosa and Cheers. Thus far, the establishment has played host to numerous unforgettable rebirth moments. This includes the competition in Trivial Pursuits, the fourth episode of the Frasier reboot, where Freddie defeated his father in a game show. There's still hope that Frasier may return to Cheers, even if the Paramount Plus project has already made it a familiar backdrop. Nevertheless, there's a deeper significance to the new bar, which supports Frasier's preference for it. In contrast to the name of the Cheers bar and Cafe Nervosa from the original Frasier series, the new bar in the Frasier reboot isn't named until episode 4. Following a heated dispute between Freddie and his father in the firehouse on the significance of his work, the Harvard lecturer-turned-therapist makes his way back to the bar, which is presumably called Mahoney's and dates back to season 1940. In actuality, this is just one of the numerous homages the Paramount Plus project has to the late John Mahoney, who played Martin Crane and died away in 2018. This basically denies the new show the opportunity to revisit Frasier and his father. In addition to its name, Mahoney's establishment date honors the cherished original Frasier actor. It alludes to 1940, the year of John Mahoney's birth. He was 77 years old when he passed away, having been born on June 20, 1940. Given Martin's significance to the original Frasier series, it was only fitting that the revival looked for methods to pay tribute to him. Though naming the pub after Mahoney's Martin from the Frasier series final is also a terrific creative way to convey that, the Frasier Reboot pilot did that rather directly with a tag scene. Claimed to be the character's third and maybe last act, it is anticipated to conclude his whole narrative, encompassing his 8 years in Cheers. He was only a supporting role in the critically praised NBC series, while being a star player. As a result, its happenings have less bearing on his next arc than his Seattle experience, which focused mostly on his reconciliation with his father. Even though Martin isn't physically present in the Frasier reboot, his influence is felt greatly since Frasier adopts the role of a parent who is trying to get back in touch with his son. The main plot of the Frasier reboot, which draws inspiration from the original series, shares certain similarities with Frasier's relationship with Martin. Freddie shares his parents' degree of intelligence, but aside from that, he resembles his grandfather more. Frasier attempts to emulate his father's example of wanting to be a good father, and this serves as his yardstick while he rebuilds his relationship with his own son. Paying tribute to Cheers comes after recognizing Martin and his legacy, as the core story of the Frasier relaunch naturally makes them a significant narrative element in the revival. Even while Martin's influence on Frasier is a central subject in the reboot, the character's past need not be completely ignored. It's also significant that the new Frasier makes reference to his time in Cheers, particularly in light of his return to Boston. He already discussed his time spent hanging out at a specific pub on his last visit to Beantown in the pilot. But other than that, he hasn't reopened Sam's pub. Observing him reuniting with his former bar buddies is another way to celebrate Cheers, other from maybe going back to the famous establishment.